Hi, everybody. This is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. It's March 29th today, Friday, and I'm going to be doing an overview of the astrology of April for next month. There are actually a lot of transits happening in April, and many of them are happening simultaneously. As an astrologer who does monthly write-ups, I find that when there are lots of transits happening simultaneously, that it's very difficult to write about them and it's very difficult to speak about them. The main reason is that when you have so many planetary transits occurring simultaneously, you're trying to find a common thread, and yet you've got things appearing all over the place. So it's like, well, how do you find that common thread? What's bringing it all together? So I thought about that a lot, and the thing for me that I'm going to start with today to try and create a common theme for all of the transits of the month is the passage of the south node of the moon between Pluto and Saturn. This is an incredibly intense transit that's happening all throughout April and even into May. And I think to me, it's probably the heaviest and it sort of has the most gravity to it. So I want to talk about that first and then try to contextualize the rest of the planetary transits of the month in relation to the South Node Pluto-Saturn connection. So let's talk about that first. First of all, the South Node of the moon in ancient astrology was said to decrease both the good and the bad. What does that mean? Well, the South Node of the moon is really a point. It's considered a planet in Vedic astrology, but sort of a shadow planet. But it's astronomically speaking, it's a point at which the moon descending toward the south will cross the ecliptic path of the sun, which is a general indicator because the moon is the ruler of fortune or fluctuation and change in the material realm. That's how it's talked about almost unanimously by ancient Greek astrologers. And because the moon is intersecting this point heading downward, it represents a point at which fortune declines. Now, decline in the realm of fortune is not just bad. It could be good or it could be bad, depending a lot on the circumstance. So what are the circumstances and of this specific configuration that Saturn or that the South Node is involved with? Well, actually, the South Node is in Saturn's sign and was also traditionally associated with the planet Saturn. So you have this idea of fortune declining. Well, if you're thinking of shrinking a tumor, that might be a good thing. If you're thinking of shrinking your bank account, maybe that's not so happy. But either way, the South Node tends toward decline, descent, and so when you're thinking about that, you also think naturally about the archetypal qualities of Saturn. Saturn that represents decline, descent, and deterioration and mortality. So the reason that it's so powerful right now is that the South Node is in Saturn's sign, is of the nature of Saturn, and is conjoining with Saturn, as well as Pluto. So here you have a powerful a planet, an agent like Pluto, that purges pent-up energy and releases it sometimes in catharsis, and also can be very destructive, but transformative, regenerative. And then you have Saturn, which is so austere and heavy and concrete. And Saturn is the lord of necessity in ancient astrology, which is that thing that binds everything to its outcome. If I throw a ball as hard as I can at a window, it will break it. That's, in a sense, what ancient people meant by necessity. So right now we have the picture of inevitable decline, loss, and the weight and power of necessity featured. And it's transformative, it's cathartic, it's deep, it's dark. It's about mortality. It's in Capricorn. It's wintry. It's really heavy, and it feels a little bleak, frankly. So it's been a heck of a thing to have the South Node conjoined with Pluto during a really intense Mercury retrograde. Mercury in its exile and its fall combusts the sun, conjoined with Neptune. Like, my God, the retrograde we've been through has been very heavy, right? So heavy. So when you look at that retrograde, though, set against the backdrop of a sort of a ongoing sextile relationship to the South Node, Pluto, and Saturn, that's where you're getting that feeling of the weight, the gravity, the necessity, the decline, the loss. A Mercury retrograde travel story for me turned into a total nightmare. Like, I had my feet, also ruled by Mercury, got swollen so badly because I got stuck in like a 35-hour situation coming home from India due to like a conflict between India and Pakistan. So my feet swole up, and then it took a while for them to go down, and then I had ongoing problems with my left foot. I had to go get an ultrasound done on it to make sure there was no blood clot. Like, it was bananas. And we got Mercury's just turning direct right now, still in the conjunction with Neptune. Here in the news in the United States, we've got the Mueller report coming out. Everyone's like, yep, it's all done. It's a done deal. Astrologers are like, it's not done. Mercury retrograde with Neptune, please. This is the smoke and mirrors. There's a lot more to come. We don't know what exactly, but there's more, and we'll find out. And either that, or you have just a lot of stories about people going through very unexpected, disorienting turns of fortune or fate that feel heavy, that feel fated. That's the mood that has to do not only with the Mercury retrograde we've gone through, but the Saturn and Pluto and South Node of the Moon. And remember, Saturn and Pluto are in a process of coming together to conjoin by next winter. So that's the backdrop of April's astrology. Coming into April, we've still got, South Node of the Moon moving now from Pluto into conjunction with Saturn. So last month may have been a bit more cathartic and heavy. A lot of leg and foot injuries, by the way, in my news feed. Like, I swear to God, like I've seen so many of them. I see Carol mentioning one right here. But where are things heading this month? Well, still that feeling of necessity, gravity, that kind of Saturnine, restrictive, heavy, or fated feeling, which a lot of us don't like, right? Nobody likes that feeling of fate. The message of the month in many ways is about I want to just summarize it like this, is that there is a powerful degree of liberation available to us by the end of April. By the 20th to 23rd of April, you're just going to see the sun enter Taurus and go through a conjunction with Uranus, which can be very liberating and very clarifying, and sort of paradigm shifting. But before it does, and stabilizing. Weirdly enough, the sun and Uranus, although they might shake things up a little bit, by the time it's done, can also provide us with a deeper and more stable way of doing things. That's not going to come easily this month, though. Because of the South Node Saturn configuration, there's going to be a feeling of meeting things that must be, and that it's going to feel a little bit difficult. And so if I had to summarize the message for the month, I'd say, like, if you can accept the hardships that are coming on to you right now, right? And if you can kind of take them on willingly and gladly, and trust that, where there's an ebb, there's a flow, where there's a down, there's an up, just kind of keep that big perspective. By the end of the month, things should be, you should be feeling mobilized and ready to meet challenges and move through things. Because there's nothing like a South Node Saturn moment to clarify what is real and what isn't, what is important and what's not, and where your time, energy, or focus should be and where it shouldn't be. Because the meeting with necessity will also help you to prioritize what's necessary and what's not. And so I think that's the positive of the month. It's like, if you can just live through and sort of survive the heavy South Node Saturn feeling of the month, by the end, I think we'll be feeling mobilized, and we have a very clear, crystal clear, perhaps, sense of what's really important, what's not. So that's sort of the overall message of the month. But let's break down some of the transits individually. So earlier in the month, one of the things that we're seeing right away is, continuation of Mercury's conjunction with Neptune. I have found this month's, like doing my recordings for this month's horoscope column to be amazingly difficult, because it's very easy for the mind to wander all over the place with Mercury Neptune. There's a little bit of a sextile to Saturn, right now, thankfully, it's a little bit of grounding there. But April opens with the same Mercury Neptune dynamic that we've been dealing with for a while now, and it's going to be there really all the way until it's within 3 degrees of Neptune, which is an engagement in classical astrology. That's really important. All the way until April 7th, within 3 degrees of Neptune, Mercury, and still debilitated. Moving forward now, but still in that Mercury territory. Excuse me. The benefits or blessings of Mercury's conjunction to Neptune is the ability for an almost otherworldly level of insight or communication or understanding to come through, for intuition, dreams, omens, symbols, myth, metaphor, to enter into flow state. All of those kinds of dynamics with Mercury and Neptune can be very positive, especially in the first opening week or so of April. It could be very nice. Also, just intuition, reading between the lines, learning in an unusual manner, prayer, altered states of consciousness. These things are all on the up, because in some ways, when the sort of rational features of Mercury look to be a little debilitated, especially in Jupiter's sign, a more intuitive faculty may emerge. You may find that you're able to give your faith to something, or that you are naturally overcoming different doubts or hesitations or worries that you have, because there's something more intuitive, more artistic and imaginative sort of informing your thoughts. So that's the first potential for Mercury Neptune. The second potential you could probably predict. The second potential involves just fuzzy thinking and losing yourself in irrationality and not being grounded enough, or basically disinformation, manipulation of facts, secrecy and gossip, and then in the negative sense, anything where you could get your mind into trouble by wandering off, or by basically buying into information that's just not true. So that's another potential. Then we have also this, the other thing about this month is that you're going to have, right after Mercury gets in the conjunction with Neptune, you go along a little ways and Mercury will get right into a square with Jupiter by April 12th. And then same thing Venus is going to do. Venus will get into a conjunction around April 10th with Neptune, and then get into a square with Jupiter in Sagittarius by the 15th. So you have both Mercury and Venus going through conjunctions to Neptune, and then squares to Jupiter. First of all, in terms of beneficial exchanges with other people, beneficial ideas, teachers, learning, romantic connections that benefit, or allies or friends that somehow benefit you. Again, new ways of learning or thinking that become highly beneficial, or you have a more fluid or intuitive grasp on something that develops. Those would all be very positive significations for the first half of the month, with Mercury and Venus getting involved with both Neptune and Jupiter. Just a more, again, with Venus and Neptune, you have the potential for, really sort of, because Venus is exalted in Pisces, really sort of high states of union, bliss, romance, imagination, love, beauty, harmony, and kind of otherworldly with Neptune, right? Square to Jupiter. They're very beneficial, or they create, they bring blessings, finding allies or groups of people that support you, or romantic relationships where you share similar values or beliefs. Or it's there's actually a lot of positivity surrounding both Venus and Mercury's conjunction to Neptune and square to Jupiter. But the other thing that you have to be careful of, again, with Neptune, is what is really beneficial for me. There's this, I think there's an HBO documentary that I saw recently. I didn't actually watch it, I saw a preview for it. And it was about a woman, she was like a con artist who had developed some kind of medical technology, and it didn't work, or it was like a big scam. And there was this whole documentary about it. And she had convinced so many people that she had this revolutionary technology that everyone sort of bought into. Well, that's sort of what we're looking at as well, in terms of potentially buying into something or getting involved with someone or something that looks really good, that looks really big and spectacular and grandiose and very beneficial, but is actually not substantive, is actually not real. So you do want to be careful of sort of signing up for things that look like they're next level, or pursuing relationships based on what you hope you can get out of someone or something, or vice versa, when actually the result may be disillusionment. That it's hard to live up to the expectations and fantasies of Jupiter Neptune. Very little in this material world lives up to those standards, which is why that combination is nice when you talk about the potential for spiritual or artistic connections with other people. Jupiter Neptune does well in terms of the imagination of a great filmmaker or an artist, or a spiritual retreat or pilgrimage. But when you're trying to translate it into tangible kind of like, this will make me a lot of money, or this will make sure I never have to suffer or deal with any problem ever again, or when it starts getting really idealistic about and out of touch with earthly realities, especially when these combinations will sort of announce the end of suffering in some area of your life. Well, you'll never have to deal with that again. You should be really, really careful of that this month. Okay, so that dynamic takes us like halfway through the month. Neptune, we got Mercury, Venus, Neptune all moving together and then in squares with Jupiter. Now, on April 5th, you will have a new moon moving through the sign of Aries. And the new moon in Aries is also interesting because, well, anytime you have a new moon in Aries, the potential, look at where it's landing in your whole sign house chart, right? Like, what whole sign house is it falling in? And think about newness being initiated in that area of your life. But not just any kind of newness. This is a newness that with Aries, every new moon kind of brings something new, but Aries usually really asserts itself very strongly. And with the god of war, right, Mars, simultaneously moving into Gemini this month, I wouldn't be surprised if part of the new beginning that's indicated by the Aries new moon this month has to do with ideas and the importance of the mind. Where are you directing your mental energy this month, I think, is going to be really important. And also the potential for a certain degree of combativeness in the mind that will be addressed during the cycle. For example, during the 19th to 23rd, both Mercury and Venus will go through conjunctions to Chiron in Aries, suggesting that there may be a level of healing that is needed around words and thoughts and assertiveness or aggression in relationships. The war of words, or the war of ideas, or words that hurt versus words that heal. I think those themes will be strong this month with the new moon in Aries, but Mars entering Gemini. Gemini, of course, Mercury ruled. This new moon cycle also, when it asserts itself within Aries, it's usually like there's a feeling of urgency, like things got to change here, now, like this, go. But the potential for the potential for a feeling of a mental intensity is also going to be there. So you want to, pay close attention to that. You don't want to, anything you can do, like meditation practices this month, mindfulness practices, anything that kind of calms or soothes the mind so that it's not, flying too high, too fast, too fiery, is going to be good. Because remember, when the new moon is in Aries, the full moon is in Libra. Well, the full moon in Libra happens on April 19th this month. And again, it's Venus ruled. And right around that same time as the full moon is happening in Libra, Venus is going to enter Aries, sign of its detriment, and Mars' sign, go right into a conjunction with the wounded healer Chiron. So the need for diplomacy, patience, fairness, harmonizing with others amidst a potentially very mentally intense or combative or busy month is going to be there. Now, the other thing that's really important is that this moon cycle engages Saturn and Pluto. So when you're looking at the new moon on the 5th or the full moon on the 19th, you have the full moon more closely, but the sun and the full moon this month will go through pretty intense squares with Saturn and Pluto in the south node. That's why I'm saying this month has that feeling of heavier, deeper consequence to it, more intense consequences, and how are we dealing with them? When we're met with obstacles of a Saturnine south node nature, usually what's happening is things are coming up to, it seems like they're trying to block our progress. Aries new moon wants to blast forward, but you're going to hit the roadblock of the square to south node Saturn and Pluto. And they are going to, if anything about what you're trying to do needs some adjusting or correcting or modifying, you'll hit roadblocks this month. And if you try to ram through them, you'll have healing and, you'll have there'll be a lot of cleanup to do. So it's very important this month to be careful of where your impulses are taking you and what direction you're trying to go in with a lot of kind of intentionality. And then when anything comes up, to resist that, rather than plow through violently or rather than get mad or frustrated, that you just kind of remember, okay, full moon in Libra is coming. There is a karmic balancing that is occurring and it is in the obstacle that I'm meeting right now. So the obstacle has to become an angel. The obstacle has to become something that's there to teach you, that it becomes an instrument of grace. If you don't see it that way, it will be more of an enemy, and there will be cleanup work afterwards that won't be pretty. That's my feeling, because the karmic full moon in Libra shows us, again, Venus going right into her detriment in Aries, conjoining the wounded healer Chiron. So there's some message here this month about being very considerate of others and of everything happening around you, while probably being kind of compelled to act in a very strong way, in a very strong direction. And there's a lot of mental energy behind it. So another thing this month is that even if you have very strong principles informing you and what you want to do and what direction you're going to head in, which is likely the case with the new moon in Aries, God of War, and with God of War Mars in very mental, rational Gemini, you can, feel like, the temptation to want to cut others with words and to be very strong and adamant and principled about your thoughts and ideas. That's also part of the sun's eventual square to Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn this month, is that feeling of being, kind of martial and strict, assertive and rigid. Those qualities are there this month, and that's also part of what can really be damaging if we're not careful. Again, just keep in memory all month long the full moon in the balancing scales of Libra, whose concern is Venusian. Peace, friendship, healing, balance, compromise, really, really important. Then the 20th to 23rd, the sun will get involved with a conjunction to Uranus. That's when I think the sort of laboring qualities all the way that happen all the way through the full moon. Just after the full moon, then you get the Sun Uranus and this really illuminating moment that has the potential to offer us some kind of breakthrough, and that is in Venus's sign, right? So it's a kind of, there's the feeling that I get is by the end of the month, we're having some kind of breakthrough in relationships, in friendships, and in finding the harmonious solution. It's going to be kind of like a light bulb going off. And also, the other thing is that the Sun-Uranus combination toward the end of the month can also illuminate things that have been hidden. There's been a lot of smoke and mirrors with Mercury and Neptune, right? Mercury and Neptune have been kind of going through this long thing. Get the Sun and Uranus together, and you have this moment of kind of explosive insight and clarifying insight that brings peace, or that's beautiful, or that's stabilizing. So even if the epiphany that arrives through Sun and Uranus is a little rattling, which it can be, I think the overall potential for it to be illuminating and healing and to be something that, again, in Venus's sign, with all the emphasis on Aries this month, and Mars and Gemini, and the South Node with Saturn and Pluto, I'm really looking forward to the Sun Uranus toward the end of the month, because I have the feeling that it will provide a moment of clarity and awareness that we're going to be needing. We're really going to be wanting by that time, and the feeling of knowing what to do. Like, okay, I just went through quite an intense series, right, of events, and now I'm looking for something to clarify what I should do with all of this and where to go. And that's a really that's something that Sun Uranus can do for us. Finally, on the 26th and 27th of the month, Mars and Gemini will go through a square to Neptune in Pisces. This is kind of a Joan of Arc energy to end the month. So we're back to another Neptune dynamic at the end of the month. So at the end of the month, Mars's square to Neptune may have us feeling the need to join some kind of larger cause or vision or mission, where things in the earlier phase of the month might have started in terms of individual needs and desires and individual thoughts, and this is my position, this is what I'm going to do. I think by the end of the month, there's diplomatic breakthroughs and the feeling of needing to join a larger collective, or the feeling of there being a mobilized effort of some kind, or some greater sense of a common cause or crusade that we want to be a part of. I think the month starts more, kind of firmly entrenched in individual desires and intentions and actions. I think it ends up much more collective, and it starts in me, ends in we kind of feeling. The Mars Neptune square can also be about, making yourself a martyr. So you want to be careful about that, because sacrifice for a larger cause, kind of like a knight who's going to fight for some bigger thing, and it kind of might feel noble, but also giving yourself or sacrificing in a way that's harmful or self-destructive. You have to be really careful of that with Mars Neptune. Mars Neptune will also sometimes, it's kind of like Don Quixote, you're sort of tilting at windmills. Mars Neptune will have you fired up about something that you think is very, very important, really, really matters, maybe somewhat delusional, right? So you have to be careful of that as well. It's a fine line. Like, how are you supposed to tell if something that you're feeling excited about and that you're feeling like you want to get involved with is a fantasy, or if it's a good use of your time or energy? Well, I can tell you that the thing that will be helpful is that Mars and Mercury will be in mutual reception with one another from Aries and Gemini. So when you get into around that time of the month, Mercury will be in a sextile with Mars, while Mars is in Gemini and Mercury is in Aries, so mutual reception. That is a much better relationship between Mercury and Mars than Mercury being in Pisces. So my sense is that even though Mars is going to be square with Neptune and things can get, a little fuzzy, you might join the wrong war or something. The rational, discerning faculty should be better at this time. Maybe pretty intense mentally, pretty fired up, but I think it'll be operating at a little. It'll be a little bit better than Mercury with Neptune, which is can be really overwhelming. So, at any rate, I'm blazing through this today because I have an appointment I have to get to. So that's your overview for the month. I hope that this has been helpful, gives you some good things to think about. In a monthly overview, we usually paint with some pretty broad strokes. But if people have specific questions that you'd like to ask about the month or any component of the month, you can always email me at nightlightastrology@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to put it into one of my YouTube videos in the month ahead. Stay tuned because I'll have my written column out in the next few days, and the horoscope videos for each sun and rising sign on my YouTube channel as well. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I hope you all have a great month of April, and look forward to seeing what's going to happen. I think, again, my own mantra with South Node and Saturn all month is, this is a month of necessity. I have to remember, no matter how mentally intense I might feel about things, that there is a trajectory and a curriculum in this month that is bigger than me. And I have to be very aware of the needs and feelings and realities of other people around me, so that I'm not having to pick up the pieces of broken relationships or fractured friendships or things like that later in the month, because I think the potential to want to try to push through things that feel like they're personally thwarting us at the cost of harming people around us is high this month. So that's what I'm thinking about mostly. Okay, everyone, you have a great month, and we'll see you again for May's update. Bye.